This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, students. Last class, I explained the institute tests conducted in subsoil exploration or the field test conducted in subsoil exploration. In that, we discuss the standard penetration test, static cone penetration test, dynamic cone penetration test, and the fourth one is in situ vein shear test, and the fifth one is pressure meter test. These tests are conducted in the field at the time of subsoil investigation to study the properties of soil below the ground level. And I explained in that we conducted these in situ tests either on the ground level or at the bottom of the borehole. Then in the previous classes, I explained the different methods used in subsoil exploration: direct methods, semi-direct methods, and indirect methods. We have three different methods to conduct the subsoil exploration. Subsoil exploration means the study of soil below the ground level. In the direct method, we discussed test pits, trenches, drifts, and shafts. These four comes under the direct method. In the direct method, the civil engineer can go inside the ground to study the soil properties below the ground level. Then the semi-direct method. In the semi-direct method, we drill the borehole into the ground level, below the ground level. So in the semi-direct method, the civil engineer will not go inside the ground, below the ground, but by drilling the boreholes below the ground level, we can bring the soil samples from the bottom of the boreholes to the ground level, and we study the properties of soils below the ground level. That is the semi-direct method of subsoil exploration. Then the third one, important one, is indirect method. Without excavating the test pits, without drilling the boreholes, we can study the properties of soils below the ground level. That is called indirect method. So in the indirect method, we are not excavating the test pits and we are not drilling the boreholes to study the soil properties, but we are using some techniques, advanced techniques, to study the properties of soils below the ground level. That is called indirect method of subsoil exploration. In that indirect method, the geophysical methods are applied. The geophysical methods are applied to study the properties of soils below the ground level. So in the today's class, I am going to explain you what are these geophysical methods, how we can use the geophysical methods in the subsoil exploration to study the properties of soils below the ground level. Now follow this geophysical methods procedure carefully. So in the geophysical methods, we study the properties of soils, the different soil layers below the ground level. Especially in the geophysical methods, we study the elasticity properties of the soil, modulus of elasticity, and also sometimes the Poisson's ratio also. So in the geophysical methods, not only the index properties, engineering properties, but we also study the elastic properties of soils below the ground level. Then in this geophysical methods, please everyone watch this slide carefully. In the geophysical methods, we have basically two different methods. One is seismic refraction method. We have two types of geophysical methods. First one is seismic refraction method, and the second one is electric resistivity method. These two methods we adopted in the geophysical methods to study the properties of soils below the ground level. First one is seismic refraction method. Seismic waves, the shock waves, are sent inside the soil below the ground level. By observing that sound waves traveling into the ground level, we can study the properties of soil below the ground level. And the second one is the measurement of electric resistance properties of soil below the ground level. So we have basically two types of methods in the geophysical indirect method of subsoil exploration, the seismic refraction method and the electrical resistivity method. In those two methods, in our syllabus, we have the first method, the seismic refraction method of geophysical investigation of subsoil exploration. So I am going to explain that seismic refraction method used in the geophysical method. So the first geophysical method is seismic refraction method. Before going to discuss that seismic refraction method, what is the principle? What is the principle in this seismic refraction method? First understand that principle. So please read the sentences on the slide. The seismic refraction method is based on the principle that the elastic waves or the shock waves or the sound waves will have different velocities in the different materials. That is the principle. The velocity of shock waves. I will tell you later what are these shock waves or the elastic waves. The velocity of the shock waves is different in different materials. I hope in your lower classes, in intermediate or in 10th class, you might have studied when the wave is moving in a material, the velocity of wave is different in different materials. Velocity is not same, especially sound waves and some other waves, longitudinal waves, progressive waves. When they are moving in the materials, they are moving with different materials. The velocity depending on density of material. Any disturbance, please? Any disturbance? So you might have studied in the lower classes that when the wave is moving in the materials, the velocity of wave is different in different materials. It is not same in all the materials. The velocity directly proportional to the density. If the material is denser material, it is moving with large velocity. If the material is lighter material, low density, it is moving with lesser velocity. So like that, the velocity of wave is different in different materials. It is directly proportional to the density of the material. That is the principle on which this seismic refraction method depends. So follow that principle carefully. So when the elastic wave, shock wave is moving in the materials, that material may be solid material or soil material, then those shock waves are traveling with different velocities in different materials. Then the next principle is at the interface of different materials, that is at the layer. When the shock wave is moving from one soil layer to another soil layer below the ground level, that is called interface. So when the shock wave is moving inside the ground from one soil layer to another soil layer, then that shock wave subjected to the reflection and also refraction. I hope you remember the light concept in physics. When the light is traveling from rarer medium to denser medium, some light subjected to refraction, some light subjected to reflection. So like that, here also, when the shock wave or the elastic wave inside the ground, when the shock wave is traveling from one soil layer to another soil layer, in that shock wave, some part of shock wave subjected to reflection, some part of shock wave subjected to refraction. In this seismic refraction method, we are using the refracted wave, not the reflection wave. The refracted wave we are using in the seismic refraction method to study the properties of soil below the ground level. So before going to discuss this seismic refraction method, please everyone understand what are the principles in this seismic refraction method. The first principle is these shock waves are traveling with different velocities in different soil materials. Number of times we discussed, below the ground level, the soil is not uniform. The soil is a layered soil. Most of the cases, in 98% or even 99% of project cases, below the ground level, normally we encounter the soil layers, different types of soil layers. So when the shock wave or the elastic wave, we create these shock waves in the seismic refraction method. When you are conducting the seismic refraction method at a particular place, at a particular location, first we place a metal plate on the ground surface. Please follow this carefully. How to create these shock waves, how to create the elastic waves. In the seismic refraction method, to create the shock waves or the elastic waves or the seismic waves, all are same. Shock waves, elastic waves or seismic waves, we place a metal plate on the ground level. Then by using a hammer, by using a heavy hammer, we apply the blows on that metal plate on the ground level. When the hammer hits the metal plate, when the hammer hits the metal plate, the waves are generated. So by using the blows of hammer on the metal plate, we create these shock waves or the seismic waves. Those seismic waves or the shock waves travel inside the ground. So when the seismic wave travels inside the ground, the velocity of the seismic wave at different soil layers is different, not the same. That is the first principle. The second principle is at the interface of two different soil layers. When the seismic wave is moving from one soil layer to another soil layer below the ground level, then that seismic wave subjected to the reflection and also refraction at the interface of one soil layer to another soil layer. And in the seismic refraction method, we are going to use the refracted seismic wave to study the soil properties below the ground level. This is the principle behind this seismic refraction method. Now, observe this next slide. So this is the diagram. This is the diagram. So everyone, please observe this diagram. This is the source where we create the shock waves. Just now I explained by using the metal plate and hammer. Here we place the metal plate on the ground level and we hit that metal plate with a heavy hammer. When the hammer hits the metal plate, that impact produces the waves. Due to that hitting of hammer on the metal plate, the waves will generate. Those are called seismic waves or shock waves. Those waves are traveling inside the ground level. So check this diagram carefully. The waves generated at the ground level, shock waves or seismic waves, they travel inside the ground level. When these shock waves or seismic waves are traveling inside the ground level at different soil layers, they are having different velocities. In the upper layer, they are moving with one velocity. In the lower layer, they are moving with another velocity. So like that, inside the ground level, these shock waves or the seismic waves are traveling with different velocities. Now, at this interface, this is the interface. At this interface between the first layer and second layer, some portion of this shock wave subjected to reflection, that is, they are traveling inside the second layer. Some portion of the shock wave subjected to refraction. Without moving to second layer, they will move from the first layer. Similarly, observe this shock wave. When the shock wave is traveling into the second layer, and below this second layer we have the third layer. So at this interface, some portion of shock wave is moving into the third layer. Some portion of shock wave gets reflected and it is coming back to the ground level. That is called the refracted shock wave. We are using those refracted shock waves, not the reflected. We are using those refracted shock waves from the ground level to study the properties of soil below the ground level. This is the main principle behind this seismic refraction method. Then already I explained in the seismic refraction method. The shock waves are traveling with different velocities inside the soil layers. They are not moving with the same velocities in all the soil layers. They are moving with the different velocities inside the soil layer. Normally, when the shock wave is in traveling condition in a material, when the shock wave is traveling, the velocity of shock wave is given by the equation. V is equal to, please everyone observe the equation. This is the velocity of the shock wave inside the material. V is equal to C root E into G divided by gamma. This is the equation used to find out the velocity of shock wave in a material. V is equal to C root EZ divided by gamma. In that equation, C is a constant and capital E is the Young's modulus of soil. Different soils are having different Young's modulus values, and G is acceleration due to gravity, almost constant. Gamma is the bulk unit weight of soil. Bulk unit weight. That gamma is also different for different types of soils, since the velocity of shock wave depending on Young's modulus of soil and the bulk unit weight of soil. Here E is different for different soils, gamma is different for different soils. So this velocity of shock wave is not constant in all the soil layers. They are moving with different velocities in different soils. Then the other important point is, most important point is, in the seismic refraction method, we make an important assumption. Please everyone listen that in the seismic refraction method, we make an important assumption that from the ground level, the soils in the vertical direction, from the ground level, the soil in the vertical direction, the soils below the ground level in the vertical direction gradually increased in density. That is very, very important. So we assume in the seismic refraction that the top layer is soft, the second layer some hard, the third layer still hard. So like that, from the ground level, we assume in the seismic refraction method, that is an important assumption. The hardness of soils from the ground level is gradually increasing in the vertical direction. That is the most important assumption we are making in this seismic refraction method while using this method in the field investigation of subsoil exploration. Now, please watch this diagram, very, very important. In this diagram, you can observe number of concepts. So, in this diagram, check this diagram. This P is the source where we create the shock waves. Already explained, by using the metal plate and hammer. When you apply the hammer blow on the metal plate, that impact produces the waves. Those waves are traveling inside the soil. So here the shock waves are created at the ground level. Those shock waves are traveling inside the soil. So observe this. This is the first soil layer, followed by second soil layer, followed by third soil layer, different soil layers. H1, the height of the thickness of the first soil layer. H2, the thickness of the second soil layer. H3, the thickness of the third soil layer. So below the ground level, we have different soil layers, not same soil. The soil is different soil layers. Then in this, so from this source, the shock waves are traveling with different velocities. When the shock wave is traveling in the first soil layer, the velocity is v1. When the shock wave is traveling in the second soil layer, velocity is v2. So observe this diagram here. This is the first shock wave. It is traveling in the first layer with velocity v1. When the shock wave enters into the second soil layer, the velocity becomes as v2. Since the soil changes, the velocity also changes. Then observe this another shock wave. Here in the first soil layer, the velocity is v1. When the shock wave is entered into the second soil layer, velocity is v2. When it is entered into the third soil layer, velocity is v3. Then we discussed just now here this shock wave at this interface subjected to reflection as well as refraction. So at this interface, the shock wave subjected to reflection and it enters into the second soil layer. Refraction enters into the second soil layer. After traveling some distance in the second soil layer, again this shock wave coming in the upward direction, moving in the upward direction in the first soil layer. Because of some obstruction and due to the impact on soil particles, the shock wave again comes back to the first soil layer, again with the same velocity v1, and it travels to the ground level. And similarly, this another shock wave also. This second shock wave traveling in the first soil layer with velocity v1, enters into the second soil layer with velocity v2, enters into the third soil layer with velocity v3, then again it comes back to the second soil layer with velocity v2, and again comes back to the first soil layer with velocity v1 and reaches the ground level. Then in the ground level, check this shock wave. Please everyone check this shock wave. This shock wave is traveling only in the first soil layer, whereas these remaining shock waves, this shock wave is traveling in the first layer and also the second layer. This another shock wave traveling in the first soil layer, second soil layer, third soil layer. But this shock wave is traveling in the only first soil layer, not in the remaining soil layers. It is traveling in the first soil layer only. Then observe these remaining shock waves. In this seismic refraction method, we assume the first layer is a soft layer, the second layer is a little bit hard layer, the third layer is a still hard layer. So like that, the hardness of soil layers increasing from the ground level. Since this hardness is gradually increasing, the velocity v1 less than the velocity v2, velocity v2 less than the velocity v3. So in the seismic refraction method, as the hardness of the soils gradually increasing in the downward direction, the velocity depending on the density. Density is indirectly related to hardness. When hardness is more, density is also more. So we assume in the seismic refraction method, from this ground level, the density of the soil layers gradually increases in the downward direction. When the density increases, the velocity of the shock waves also increases. So the velocity v2 greater than v1, the velocity v3 greater than v2. So like that, in the seismic refraction method, when this density of the soils increasing in the downward direction, the velocities are also gradually increases. This is the first shock wave. It is traveling only in the first soil layer with velocity v1. These are known as p1, p2, p3. These are known as the geophones. This is the arrangement of geophones on the ground level. In the seismic refraction method, we arrange the geophones. What is the use of geophones? These geophones receives the shock waves coming onto the ground level. So when this shock wave coming onto the ground level, those shock waves are received by the instruments known as the geophones. By using these geophones are the devices. Normally, we use these geophones to receive the waves coming from the ground level. So in this test, in this seismic refraction test, the shock waves traveling inside the ground level, again they are coming back to the ground level. Those shock waves coming onto the ground level are received by the devices known as the geophones. We arrange these geophones at regular distances on the ground level from this source. From the source, the geophones, number of geophones are arranged on the ground level to pick up, to receive the shock waves coming back to the ground level after traveling inside the ground level. So to receive those shock waves, we arrange these devices known as the geophones on the ground level. Once the geophone receives the shock wave, if the geophone receives the shock wave, that geophone converts the shock wave into electric pulse. When the geophone receives the shock wave from the ground, that geophone converts that shock wave into electric pulse, and that electric pulse, this geophone send that electric pulse to some other devices called seismograph. I will show you that seismograph later. This geophone, when the geophone receives the sound wave from the ground level, the geophone converts that sound wave into electric pulse. That electric pulse is sent to the other device known as seismograph. Now check this diagram. Here, this is P1, first geophone, P2, second geophone, P3, third geophone. The first geophone receives the shock wave directly. This is the first shock wave in first soil layer. This shock wave is not traveling in the other soil layers. This shock wave is traveling only in the first soil layer. So this geophone P1 receives first. The geophone P1 receives first the shock wave from this source. Then this geophone converts this shock wave into electric pulse. That electric pulse is sent to the seismograph. When the seismograph receives the electric pulse, the seismograph noted the time of receiving the electric pulse. So that is very, very important. Please follow this carefully. Don't confuse. When the seismograph receives the electric pulse, it will note down in which time it receives the electric pulse. What is the time of receiving the electric pulse is noted by the seismograph. Now the procedure is, when I hit this metal plate with the hammer, immediately I will switch on the seismograph. When the hammer blow is applied on the metal plate, I switch on the seismograph. Because of that impact, when the hammer hits the metal plate, these waves traveling into the ground level. Then this first shock wave is traveling only in the top layer, and that is received by this first seismograph. When this first seismograph receives this shock wave, it converts the shock wave into electric pulse. That electric pulse is sent immediately to seismograph. Then the seismograph noted the time of receiving this shock wave by this geophone. So when the geophone, this P1 geophone receives this shock wave traveling in the first soil layer, it converts that shock wave into electric pulse, that is sent to seismograph. Then the seismograph noted the time of receiving this first shock wave by the first geophone. Then the second shock wave. The second shock wave is traveling into the first soil layer and also into the second soil layer. Then the second shock wave received by the another geophone, not the first geophone. The second shock wave received by the another geophone. When the second shock wave is reaching this geophone, it converts that geophone P2. P2 is the geophone receiving this second shock wave. When this P2 receives the shock wave, it converts the shock wave into electric pulse. Electric pulse into seismograph. Seismograph noted the time of receiving the second shock wave. So look at that first shock wave. It is traveling only in the first soil layer. Second shock wave is traveling in the first soil layer and also second soil layer. Then the third shock wave. The third shock wave is traveling into the first soil layer, second soil layer and also third soil layer. that third shock wave is received by the another geophone P3. When this geophone P3 receives this shock wave, it converts into electric pulse. That electric pulse sent to seismograph. Then the seismograph noted the time of receiving this third shock wave traveling in the 3 soil layers. So whenever this geophone receiving the shock wave, they convert that shock wave into electric pulse, and that electric pulse is sent to seismograph. The seismograph will notate the time of receiving those electric pulses from the geophones. Then from this source, the distance of the first geophone is D1. The distance of the second geophone is D2. The distance of the third geophone is D3. So in this arrangement of seismic refraction method, we have the source, the metal plate and the hammer to produce these shock waves into the ground level. These shock waves are received by the devices known as the geophones. These geophones are arranged at some distances from the source. When the shock wave is received by these geophones, they convert the shock wave into electric pulse. That electric pulse is sent to seismograph. The seismograph will notate the time of receiving those sound waves, seismic waves by the geophone. Now observe this another slide carefully. So in this seismic refraction method, check this diagram, please. Observe this diagram. This is the source. So we are hitting the metal plate with a hammer. Please give me the response, students. Can you see this slide on your cell phone screens? Please give me the response. Can you see this slide on the cell phone screens, this diagram? Please give me the response. Can you see the slide on the? Just wait a minute, please. Just wait a minute. Please give me the response. Can you see this on the cell phone screens? Very, very important arrangement, testing arrangement of the seismic refraction method. Anyone give me the response? Can you see this on the cell phone screens? That arrangement of the seismic refraction method devices arrangement. Is it visible on the cell phone screens? Please switch on the mics and give me the response. Is it visible on the cell phone screens? Anyone give me the response? Is it visible on the cell phone screens?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Kalyan. Thank you, J. Krishna. Now, observe that arrangement of this seismic refraction test. Here, this is the source. Please, everyone, follow this. This is the source, the metal plate. We hit that metal plate with a hammer. The hammer blows are applied on the metal plate. When this hammer hits the metal plate, the shock waves will generate due to that impact. Those shock waves are seismic waves. They are traveling inside the ground level. So here the shock waves are moving inside the ground level, and also some shock waves are traveling only in the first soil layer. Some shock waves are traveling only in the first soil layer. Then from this source at regular distances, we arrange these devices. These devices are called geophones. We are calling these devices as geophones. These geophones receives the shock waves coming from the ground level. This first geophone at a distance of D1. This first geophone receives the shock wave traveling only in the first soil layer. Once this geophone receives that shock wave, it converts that shock wave into electric pulse. That electric pulse is sent to this device called seismograph. This seismograph, once this seismograph receives that electric pulse, it noted that time of receiving. So when I apply this hammer blow, this person immediately starts the seismograph. So this seismograph is functioning when the hammer is hitting the metal plate. that is at the time of generation of the seismic waves. When this first geophone receives that shock wave, it converts the shock wave into electric pulse that is sent to seismograph. That seismograph noted the time of receiving the first shock wave. Then the second geopulse, that second geophone, it receives the another shock wave, and the time is also noted in the seismograph. Like that, these geophones receives the seismic waves coming back to the ground level. They convert that seismic wave into electric pulse, then that is sent to this seismograph. The seismograph will note the time of receiving that sound wave coming from the seismograph, the geophone. Then here we know, please observe this carefully, listen this carefully. Here we know the distance of geophone from the source, that is one data. We also know the time of receiving the electric pulse. Electric pulse means sound wave or the seismic wave. The time of receiving the seismic wave by these geophones from this seismograph. So here in this experiment, in this test, we have two known details. One is the distance of the geophone from this source. Next one is the time of receiving the seismic waves by these geophones. That time is noted in the seismograph. So in this test, we have two details. One is the distance of the geophone from the source. The second one is the time of receiving the seismic waves by the geophones. By using that data, by using the time and the distance, in this test, we prepare a graph. The graph is prepared in this experiment. So here the another details, the same one as explained previous. These geophones receives the seismic waves traveling from the ground, and they convert it into electric pulse that is sent to geophone, that sent to seismograph to notate the time of receiving those sound waves by the geophones. Then once by knowing the distance of geophone, please observe this. We know the distance of the geophone from the source. We also know the time of arrival of the shock waves from the ground level to the geophones. By knowing those details, this is the distance of the geophone from the source. We consider the distance on the x-axis as abscissa. So we prepare a graph. By taking the distance of the geophone on the x-axis, the time of receiving the sound wave, the seismic wave by the geophone on y-axis. So on y-axis, we noted this time of receiving the seismic wave by the geophone from the seismograph. Just now I explained, from the seismograph we noted this time of receiving the seismic wave by the geophone. So that time is taken on the y-axis. The distance of the geophone from the source is taken on the x-axis. Then by indicating those data on this graph, we will get this graph like this. We are getting the graph like this. This is the first geophone receiving the first impulse, second geophone, third geophone, like that. So we arrange a number of geophones on the ground level. Those geophones will receive the seismic wave from the ground, and that data converted into the time by the seismograph. So take the time of receiving the shock waves by the geophones on y-axis, the distance of the geophone from the source on x-axis. If you plot those data, you will get this graph like that. So here this is one straight line prepared by the distance of the geophone from the source, the time of receiving the electric pulse or the seismic wave by the geophone. This is the another straight line. This is the other geophones arranged on the ground level from the source, and the time of receiving the electric pulse by these geophones from the ground level. Then these two straight lines will meet at one common point, and the point is called, the critical point. And from the horizon, measure the distance of that critical point, the distance is called DC. So by using that details, distance of the geophone from the source and the time of receiving the shock wave by the geophone from the ground level, we can prepare the graph. Sometimes you will get the graph like this. We are getting this graph like this because if the soil below the ground level is a two-layer soil, once this soil below the ground level is a two soil layer, you will get two different types of straight lines, because in the first soil layer velocity is v1, in the second soil layer velocity is v2. Since there is a change in the velocities of sound waves, shock waves in different soils, you are getting these two different straight lines. They are not the same straight lines, since the velocity of the seismic waves, in the beginning I explained the important principle in the seismic refraction method is the shock waves are traveling with different velocities in different soil layers. Since here we have two soil layers, observe this diagram. We assume there are two soil layers in this ground, below the ground. The first soil layer is thickness h1 and the second soil layer is of some other thickness. So in this first soil layer, the shock waves are traveling with velocity v1, and in the second soil layer, the shock waves are traveling with velocity v2. These are the geophones. Some geophones receives only the shock waves traveling in the first soil layer. Some other geophones receives the shock waves traveling in the second soil layer. Since the velocity of the shock waves in the second soil layer is v2, you are getting this another straight line. These two straight lines are meeting at common point, that is called a critical point. This is the location where there is a change in the soil strata. So at this location, the soil strata is changing from first layer to the second layer. So there is a change in the velocity of the shock wave in the second soil layer. So check this diagram carefully. This is the source. Here we create the shock waves by impacting the metal plate with a hammer. Due to that, the shock waves will travel into this ground. Some shock waves traveling only in the first soil layer, they are received by some geophones arranged on the ground level. These geophones convert the shock waves into electric pulse. It is sent to the seismograph. The seismograph noted the time of receiving those shock waves by these geophones. From this source, note down the distance of these geophones. First geophone, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So I know the distances of these geophones from the source, take it on the x-axis, and also from the seismograph, I know the time of receiving the shock waves by these geophones, take it on the y-axis. So I will get this first straight line. So this first straight line indicates the shock waves traveling in only the first soil layer. Some other shock waves traveling in the first layer and also in the second layer, they are received by the another geophones. These geophones receives the shock wave traveling in the second soil layer with velocity v2. So note down the distance of these geophones from the source, take it on the x-axis, and the seismograph gives the time of receiving the shock waves by these geophones, take it on the y-axis, you will get the second straight line. These two are the different straight lines because the first straight line is only for the shock waves in the first layer. Second straight line is for the shock waves in the layer. The second layer is a denser layer, so the velocity is different. Once the velocity is different, these straight lines are also different. They will meet at a point called critical point. It is the location where there is a change in the soil strata. From this horizon on the graph, note down the distance on x-axis, take it as DC. Then consider this first straight line. The slope of the first straight line, find out the slope of the first straight line. That slope is equal to 1 divided by V1. V1 means the velocity of the shock wave in the first soil layer. Find out the slope of this straight line, that is equal to 1 by V1. From that, calculate this velocity V1. V1 is the velocity of the shock waves in first soil layer. Similarly, find out the slope of the second straight line. That slope of the second straight line is equal to 1 by V2. V2 is the velocity of the seismic wave in the second soil layer. Calculate the velocity V2. So from this graph, we can calculate the velocity V1 from the slope of the first straight line. We can calculate the velocity V2 from the slope of the second straight line. So from this graph, we know the distance DC, the distance, the velocity V1 and velocity V2. By knowing those values, distance DC, velocity V1, velocity V2, we can find out the height H1 of the first soil layer below the ground level. We have an equation to find out that height H1. This is the equation. The height of the first soil layer below the ground level, H1 is equal to DC divided by 2 root V2 minus V1 divided by V2 plus V1. By using that equation, we can find out the height of the first soil layer below the ground level. In that equation, DC, the critical distance from the graph, we can determine the critical distance. V1, the velocity of the first seismic wave velocity in the first soil layer. That V1 from the slope of that first straight line, we can find out that velocity V1, and V2, the velocity of the seismic wave in the second soil layer from the slope of the second straight line, we can find out that velocity V2. So by using that graph, the distance of the geophone from the source is taken on x-axis. The time of receiving the shock wave by the geophone is taken on the y-axis. You can prepare that graph. That graph normally having different portions of straight lines. If it is a two soil layer system, you may have two different straight lines in the graph. Those two straight lines are meeting at a common point, that is called the critical point, where there is a change in the soil strata from the horizon. Find out the distance on x-axis, that is called critical distance DC. Find out the slope of the straight line in the graph. That slope is equal to 1 divided by V1. V1 is the velocity of the shock wave in first soil layer. By knowing the slope of the first straight line, calculate the velocity V1. Similarly, find out the slope of the second straight line. That slope is is 1 by V2. V2 is the velocity of the seismic wave in the second soil layer. From that, calculate from the slope of the second straight line, calculate the velocity V2. By knowing that velocity V1 and V2 and the critical distance DC, we can find out the thickness of the first soil layer below the ground level. H1 is equal to DC by 2 into root V2 minus V1 divided by V2 plus V1. So this is the seismic refraction test in the geophysical subsoil investigation. So by using this procedure, we can find out the thickness of different soil layers below the ground level. Then coming to the important assumptions in this geophysical method, the limitations of geophysical method, that is seismic refraction method. We cannot apply the seismic refraction test if there is a hard soil overlaying the soft soil. Already I explained, in the seismic refraction method we have shown the density gradually increasing in the vertical direction. Soft layer followed by hard layer followed by still hard layer, like that. In the seismic refraction method we have shown the density gradually increasing in the vertically downward direction, but sometimes at certain locations there may be a hard soil layer, and below that hard soil layer we have the soft soil layer. If the situation is like that, a hard soil layer is over the soft soil layer, then you cannot apply the seismic refraction method to find out the thickness of the soil layers below the ground level. And sometimes the area is covered by some concrete pavements or concrete layers. In that case also, once that soil is covered by the concrete layer is a hard layer, and below that we have the soft soil. So in that case also, we cannot apply this seismic refraction method. And sometimes the soil is frozen, especially in cold countries. Due to low temperatures, the upper soil layer is subjected to freezing action. If that is the case, the freezed soil layer is a hard layer. Since the freezed hard soil layer is on the top of the ground level, near the ground level, you cannot apply this seismic refraction test. And the next one is the equipment used in this seismic refraction method is the sophisticated equipment and also costly equipment. The seismographs, the geophones, and the connections all are the costly equipment, but you will get the reliable data from this seismic refraction method without undertaking the excavations, without excavating the test pit and also the borehole. By using this seismic refraction method, we can determine the thickness of different soil layers below the soil investigation. So with this, we discuss the three methods of soil, subsoil investigation: the direct methods, the semi-direct method, followed by the indirect method. Now, after this, the last concept in this subsoil exploration is the preparation of report. How to prepare the report of the detailed report of the subsoil investigation. So in unit 1, we discuss the complete concept in subsoil exploration. How to conduct the subsoil exploration, what is meant by soil investigation. Already we discussed the complete procedure followed in subsoil exploration. From that procedure, by following that complete procedure of subsoil investigation, we collect a lot of information from that subsoil investigation. All that information should be put on the paper in the form of the detailed report, that is called subsoil investigation report. So at the end, after the completion of the subsoil exploration, the civil engineer should prepare the report of the subsoil exploration, and he must submit that report to the government, and the government will take the proper action, whether that proposed site is suitable for the project or not suitable. The government will take that decision based on the report submitted by the civil engineer on the subsoil investigation. This is a very important step in the subsoil investigation. In that subsoil investigation report, the data should contain the details about boreholes. How many boreholes drilled in that place of construction? What type of data is collected from that boreholes? What type of soils are collected? What type of tests are conducted on that soils? What are the properties of soils from the test results? That data must be there in the subsoil investigation. And also in the subsoil investigation report, the civil engineer should include what type of foundation is suitable for the proposed structures. What are the settlements of that structure at that place of construction? If the settlements are within the permissible limits, the structure is stable. If the settlements are more than the permissible limits, the structure is unstable. So before going to construct the structure, we must take some precautionary measures to limit the settlements in the structure. So this investigation report should contain all the details and the results collected from the subsoil investigation. Followed by next one is the data regarding the type of soil below the ground level, either by using the boreholes or by using the seismic refraction method. We can find out the soil layers below the ground level. Just now we discussed in the seismic refraction method, we can find out the thickness of soil layers below the ground level. That data is also included in the subsoil investigation report. By collecting the soil samples, and in the subsoil investigation report, we also include the location of the water table from the boreholes, or by observing the water levels in the nearby wells. You can observe this water table location at the place of construction. By collecting the soil samples from this borehole, we can find out the liquid limit, natural water content, and plastic limit of these soils. That details are also included in the investigation report, and also the shear strength. What about the shear strength of all these soils? This is the depth of the borehole. We collect different soil samples from this borehole. Disturbed and undisturbed soil samples, we discussed it already, and we can find out these properties of soils of collected from the boreholes, and we must also include the data in the investigation report. And this is the another information regarding this investigation report. So this report is prepared, it is a practical report. This report is prepared by the civil engineer for the construction of an important major structure. This report is prepared. Subsoil investigation report. This was prepared at Canada for a major project. So in this investigation report, these are the boreholes. These are the boreholes drilled into the soil. They collect the soil samples and they conducted the geophysical methods, that is the seismic refraction method. They indicate the information regarding the soil layers, not only in the vertical direction and also in the horizontal direction. They indicate the information regarding the soils. So like that, in the subsoil investigation report, the complete information regarding the soil below the ground level should be included. This is another way to submit the report of the subsoil investigation program. So coming to that information, what type of information should be there in the subsoil investigation report? First of all, we must include for what purpose we conducted investigation, what is the project, what are the structures. So that complete information should be there at the beginning of the report. Then about the proposed structures and also the geophysical conditions. During the site investigation, we collect the geophysical conditions either by using the maps or by reconnaissance. We conduct the geophysical maps. Then the field exploration program indicating the nature of boring, whether it is a wash boring or core boring, and also the other borings, and also details about methods of exploration, whether it is a direct method, semi-direct method, or indirect method. That is also included in the investigation report. Then the information about the in-situ test, what type of in-situ test conducted at the place of construction, and what are the results obtained from that in-situ test. That information is also there in the report. Then regarding the laboratory test conducted on the soil samples, then regarding the groundwater table and the changes in water level, then the complete results. So from the informations already collected from the subsoil investigation, prepare the complete report. Then the recommendations, what is the probable bearing capacity of the soil at that location, what type of foundations are suitable, what are the expected results, and the conclusions. This is very, very important. Conclusion, whether the proposed site is suitable for the project or not, we will give at the end of the report. If it is suitable, that is okay. If it is unsuitable, what type of methods we can apply to improve the properties of soil at the place of construction is also included at the end of the report. So this is the preparation of the subsoil investigation report. So dear students, with this, the unit 1, the subsoil exploration, is completed. Already I uploaded the numerical problems in this unit 1 in our notes. Please go through those numerical problems. Next class I will explain those numerical problems, and also I will start the unit 2 in this foundation engineering. With this, the unit 1 is completed. If anybody is having doubts regarding this entire concept of unit 1, please ask me. If anybody is having doubts regarding this entire discussion of unit 1, please ask me. Is there any doubts at any point in unit 1 from the beginning to this end? the submission of subsoil investigation report from the beginning to the end. If anybody is having the doubts in unit 1, you please ask me. Is there any doubts in unit 1? Otherwise, tomorrow I will discuss the numerical problems in unit 1. Then I will start the unit 2. If anybody is having doubts in unit 1, please ask me in tomorrow class. With this, I am going to stop the class.